Well, hello, Hermantown Community Schools staff members. This is the last of 4 videos covering the topic of non-discrimination and mandated policies. This is the second video on mandated policies in the 500 series. So this one relates more towards students, but it does include information that is very pertinent to staff and personnel. Now, the number one policy that people probably refer to and that needs to get reviewed each year is number 514, the bullying prohibition policy. This is also in all student handbooks as well. So, as some of our other policies have stated, the goal is to create a safe and civil environment that's needed for students to learn and attain high academic standards and to promote a healthy human relationship. Bullying interferes with the student's ability to learn and/or a teacher's ability to educate students in that safe environment. So we want a safe, comfortable environment for our students, and obviously, bullying stops that from happening. So, in a general statement of policy, the policy applies not only to students who directly engage in an act of bullying, but also to students who, by their indirect behavior, condone or support another student's act of bullying. And this policy also applies to an act of cyberbullying, regardless of whether such an act is committed on or off school district property and or with or without the use of school district resources. So what that is saying is that if cyberbullying is taking place off of school grounds, outside of school times, if it ends up having an effect on the school day, we are obligated to address it. No teacher, administrator, volunteer, contractor, or other employee of the school district shall permit, condone, or tolerate bullying. And an apparent permission or consent by a student being bullied does not lessen the prohibitions contained in this policy. So sometimes we run into that scenario where it looks like one student is clearly bullying another. The perceived victim says, no, 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 it's okay. That doesn't mean that it is okay. It's up to us at times to have that judgment that the behavior is not appropriate or not allowed. And with numerous other policies, retaliation against the victim or a good faith reporter or a witness of bullying is prohibited. And also, false accusations or reports of bullying against another student are also prohibited. We've actually seen this a fair number of times in recent years where one student who actually is trying to harass another student makes a claim that the other student is bullying them. So we end up investigating that person, and it creates this harassing type situation for the person who's been accused of bullying who may actually end up being the victim. The school district may take into account many factors. Those include the developmental ages. So we may look at a senior, a 12th grader, very different than we look at a first grader. The levels of harm. Is it verbal? Did anything rise to the level of being physical? Incidents of past behavior. So oftentimes we start the process by a counselor intervening. But if that does not solve the problem, and if the pattern of behavior persists, we may end up then following up with a more severe consequence. The fourth one here is a relationship between parties, and this one is especially important in the middle school and high school ages. Oftentimes, what we see when we get an accusation of bullying is we see two students who used to be very good friends, and the friendship is dissolving. And what's really happening is a struggle to try and comprehend that, but also a struggle just to try and go through that process of having a friendship end. So, oftentimes, we get claims of bullying in that scenario. So, what is the relationship between the parties? And also the context in which the alleged incidents occur. And consequences for students who commit prohibited acts of bullying may range from, again, starting with referring to a counselor all the way up to suspensions. Expulsions are not off the table, but at this point, we have not had a situation rise to that level yet. Some other definitions on the policy for bullying. Bullying means intimidating, threatening, abusive, or harming conduct that is objectively offensive, and it creates a perceived imbalance of power. So one person is clearly the person in power, and one person is clearly the victim in the scenario. And oftentimes the conduct is repeated or there's some form of pattern. If we have a one time incident, we usually look at that as bad behavior, but then it becomes bullying if it happens repeatedly or if there is a pattern of the behavior. And a second part of this is that it interferes with the student's educational opportunities. It creates enough stress for that student where they are distracted, where they are bothered enough that they don't feel comfortable and don't feel safe here at school. The next definition is cyberbullying, and this means using technology. And again, we know that anytime cyberbullying takes place, whether it's at school or outside of school, whether it's with a school device or with a personal device, anytime that it ends up having an effect on the school environment, then we are obligated to get involved. The next definition is the word immediately. And again, if you are aware of a bullying scenario, you'll want to report that within 24 hours. And conduct is not limited to means, conduct that creates bullying, but is not limited to the conduct that does the following: causes physical harm to a student or student's property, or the threat of physical harm, or the threat to damage property, or creating emotional distress. And oftentimes this is by insults, oftentimes this is the cyberbullying, invading somebody's privacy, sharing something private about that person that creates a slanderous type of scenario. So scrolling down, we want a remedial response. So if you're the staff member and you witness an act of bullying, what this means is take a measure to stop and correct the prohibited behavior as long as it does not put yourself or your safety in danger, and intervene on behalf of the student who is the target or the victim, and then report as soon as possible. Again, within 24 hours. That's the procedure. And in a bullying case, you typically want to go to the principal or building supervisor, such as the dean of students. Again, make reasonable efforts to address and resolve the bullying or prohibited conduct as long as it does not put your own safety in jeopardy, and then make that report. And reports of bullying and prohibited conduct are considered classified information. It's private educational data. Oftentimes, we'll work with both parties, and as long as we have an understanding there, we'll communicate back and forth. But in the strictest sense, reports of bullying in the investigation are considered confidential. And with that said, please consider a submission in good faith. It's not, there's no violation if you make a report that ends up not being bullying. So again, we'd rather have somebody report something in good faith and look into it and find out there's nothing there than to have somebody seeing something, not say something, and then something is happening, some bullying is happening that we could have done something to try and prevent. School district action, we do an investigation and we want to take action within 3 days. And upon completion of an investigation, the school will determine that bullying or other prohibited conduct has occurred, or maybe it hasn't. And if it has, the school district will take appropriate action based on the conduct itself. The school district is not authorized to disclose to a victim private educational or personnel data regarding an alleged perpetrator. But again, oftentimes we're having those conversations. But again, in the strictest sense, it's considered confidential information. So retaliation and reprisal, and once again, this is mentioned multiple times in this policy and throughout other policies. Anyone who makes a report, any witness who gives a statement, any person who has been a victim of bullying is protected from any retaliation against those who have been perpetrating the bullying actions. Training and education, our counselors work on this every year, and then also they oftentimes will be presenting throughout the year or at staff development activities. So those are the trainings and the appropriate instruction that take place. Oftentimes our counselors are going into classrooms and making presentations on this topic. And with that said, the school district will give an annual notice of this policy to students, parents, and staff. And we also review it each year with staff, which is what this video is doing. So that concludes policy 514 on the topic of bullying. This is followed up by policy 526 on hazing prohibition. And the purpose of this policy is similar. It's to maintain a safe learning environment for students and staff that is free from hazing. And the big thing here, the difference between hazing and bullying, is that hazing is typically connected to some sort of school activity. It is some sort of a way of bringing a student into that activity through a totally inappropriate behavior. So no student, teacher, administrator, volunteer, contractor, or other employee shall plan, direct, encourage, aid, or engage in hazing. None of those parties shall permit, condone, or tolerate hazing. And I think a big thing here with the topic of hazing is that If you're aware of it, you want to report it. You don't ever want to turn a blind eye to this. I think this is sometimes viewed as tradition or somehow acceptable, and it's not. It's not something that we want to have with any of our student activities at all. Apparent permission or consent by a person being hazed does not lessen the prohibitions, similar to that bullying policy. And it applies to incidents that occur on or off school property and during or after school hours. And once again, it oftentimes refers to a student being initiated into or affiliated with a student organization. So that's always that connection to school there, and that's where we want to be aware and take action if we are aware of any hazing. So some definitions: hazing means committing an act against a student or coercing a student into committing an act that creates a substantial risk of harm to that person. And it's for the purpose of initiating or affiliating with a student organization. This can include any type of physical brutality, any type of physical activity such as sleep deprivation, any activity involving the consumption of an alcoholic beverage or drugs. Oftentimes we'll see this in a college setting, like a fraternity, some sort of initiation there. Any activity that intimidates or threatens the student with ostracism, meaning they will be subjected to humiliation or shame or exclusion if they do not participate. And the last one here is any activity that causes or requires the student to perform a task that involves violation of state or federal law or of school district policies or regulations. And again, a student organization is any group connected with the school. So reporting procedures: report the alleged acts immediately to an appropriate school district official. Again, oftentimes your building principal, or in this case, it might be the activity director. The building principal will be informed at some point and will be responsible for conducting the investigation. And again, submission of a good faith complaint or report of hazing will not affect the complainant or the reporter's future employment, grades, or work assignments. We would rather have somebody make a report, find out that it's nothing, than to not get a report and find out something could have been prevented. Again, with school district action, we may take immediate steps if there's an immediate threat to the student. And upon completion of the investigation, the school district will take appropriate action. And the ultimate goal is to deter hazing of any kind. Reprisal and retaliation: this is mentioned in numerous policies. Again, we want to protect those who are making reports. And the dissemination of the policy is that it's in the student handbook, and we speak on this policy each year at the start of the year. All right, our last policy here for the mandated 500 series is 524. This is the Internet Acceptable Use and Safety Policy. And obviously, technology is tightly woven in everything that we do. The school district expects that faculty will blend thoughtful use of the school district computer system and the internet throughout the curriculum and will provide guidance and instruction to students in their use. And the idea here is that the internet and all of our devices are limited to the purpose of education. So the school district system has a limited educational purpose, which includes use of the system for classroom activities, educational research, and professional or career development activities. So the use of these systems are a privilege and not a right. They can be lost, both by students and by staff as well. Unacceptable uses: this applies to any district-owned property and or accounts used on or off-site, as well as personal electronic resources used on district premises. So anything that relates to the following is prohibited: anything that relates to pornography or obscene or profane or lewd information, inappropriate conduct in the educational setting, anything that creates a danger of disruption in the educational process, anything that advocates violence or discrimination. Also, anything that is false or defamatory, that act of slandering one person using either the school internet, a school device, or somehow connected to the technology from the school. Also includes any illegal acts, vandalism, damage to property or devices, as well as damage to other parts of the school district system, software, hardware, or wiring, or take any action that would violate the school district's security systems. That includes gaining unauthorized access to information resources, especially Infinite Campus for grades and attendance and behavior. And users will not use the school district system to post private information about another person. Again, a lot of concern about using devices, using the internet, using the Wi-Fi from one person slandering another person, which would also constitute cyberbullying. So as we move through the policy, These prohibitions specifically prohibit a user from utilizing the school district system to post personal information about a user or another individual on social networks as well, including Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, but not just limited to those. Users will not use the school district system to violate copyright laws or usage licensing agreements. Staff and teachers, especially, this really relates to us. There were some leniency during the COVID times of allowing us to put copyrighted materials um, onto our Google Classrooms or web pages. Some of those are tightening back up. And the one thing to really watch for is if you use pictures from Google Images, be careful with that. You want to check to see those are copyrighted or not. If they are, there are actually people out there who create software programs to search through school websites to see if teachers are posting copyrighted pictures. And then they will send that email, that information saying to the district, hey, you're violating copyright, we're going to sue you. So you end up in that potential scenario. So, especially with those pictures from the internet, Google Images, be careful about copyright usage. Users will not use the school district system for conducting business for unauthorized commercial purposes. That's also in the ethics policy as well. We want to make sure that we keep our personal lives separate from our professional lives here at school in regard to any financial transactions. Here's an important part too. If a user inadvertently accesses unacceptable materials or an unacceptable internet site, the user shall immediately disclose the inadvertent access to an appropriate school district official. Here's what this really means. You can't control what gets sent to you. So if a reliable source, a reliable person sends you an email, there's an attachment, you open it, an inappropriate picture pops up. All right, that's not your fault. You did not send it. Obviously, you want to close it as quickly as possible and inform your building principal or inform Derek or Teresa and let them know that something inappropriate came to you, that you did not send it. So that's the border, the boundary of the inappropriate conduct, that you're not sending it. Sometimes, again, we can't always control what we receive. The school district does have a filter on the internet and the Wi-Fi. The goal is to prevent obscene or pornography or any information that is harmful to minors. And harmful to minors is defined as pictures, images that are graphic in nature or show disrespect to minors in general. Also, our filter shall not discriminate based on viewpoints. So the idea that we will not try and discriminate against one view or another, especially when it becomes political. If one's going to be allowed, all views should be allowed as far as our filtering goes, as long as it's school appropriate. And the last comment under this section is that the school district will educate students about appropriate online behavior. This happens at multiple levels in multiple classrooms uh, throughout the elementary, throughout the middle school. You know, Mike Pottis does some trainings, especially with the middle school students, on proper netiquette. So there's a limited expectation of privacy for both students and for staff. Users should expect only limited privacy in the contents of personnel files on the school district system. Parents do have the right at any time to investigate or review the contents of their child's files and emails. So if a parent really wants to look at their child's Google Drive, that can be arranged and they have the right to do that. For school district employees, you should be aware that the school district retains the right at any time to investigate or review the contents of their files and email files. So we always want to use our school email in a professional manner. Each year we are made aware of this and we have to sign an internet usage agreement. And there's a limitation on school district liability. So use of the school district system is at the user's own risk. The school district will not be responsible for any damage users may suffer, including but not limited to loss, damage, or unavailability of data stored on school district diskettes, flash drives, tapes, and so on, or their Google Drive. And one example here, and this happened a few years ago in a different district, but one where a teacher tried to sue the school district they were working for because they used their own credit card over the Wi-Fi, and the credit card was the numbers, the information uh, were hacked by somebody else, and that person used that teacher's credit card to make a bunch of purchases. And the teacher tried to go after the district, saying that they were liable, and in this case, they were not. So again, there's a limitation on school district liability here. Anything that you use, especially if you end up using something in a personal manner, the person using it is the one who is open to any potential liability. So user notification, all users shall be notified of the district policy. So this video serves that purpose for staff members this year. And parents' responsibility. Outside the school, parents bear the responsibility. Sometimes because we are so interwoven with technology that there's an idea that the school or administrators or teachers can monitor students outside of school. Unless it's a school device and we're aware of something, again, that responsibility is the burden of the parent outside of the school setting. And then moving on, the implementation, the policy review. Again, we review this policy each year. And then use of personal and electronic resources during the time an employee is being paid at school and or while employees and students are on district property. All of that is subject to district policies. There are no exceptions on that. And some expectations are make sure that you use adequate passwords that cannot be copied or found out easily, and then make sure you monitor your workstation and lock it up whenever you are not at your desk. Also, make sure to not install any personal equipment or software on district-owned devices. Personally owned device guidelines, basically all of the policies apply when on school grounds or using school Wi-Fi. And we're typically talking about school devices such as Chromebooks or iPads, but ISD 700 also has a zero tolerance policy, which is also in state statute for texting or emailing while driving. So anytime driving for a school purpose, driving a school vehicle, make sure no cell phone usage, hands-free law is in act. District email should only be used for district-related businesses. Again, limit personal use of any email. And the last statement here, the district has the right at will to monitor all district information on the user's device, including wiping or resetting to factory settings or defaults. And this includes both students and staff. And that concludes our presentation on the 500 series of mandated policies.